This module describes the safe use of winches and other hauling gear used to deploy and haul fishing gear and other loads on a prawn trawler, including the safe use of winches, capstans, and blocks. Winches are used to deploy and haul fishing gear and other loads. The operator of any winch must be an experienced person, trained and authorized to use the winch by the skipper. The operator must have a clear understanding of all winch controls and their function, in particular emergency stop controls. The winch must have a documented startup and shutdown checklist, and the winch operator must have read this checklist. Because the winch operator often has good view of deck operations, he or she may be the first to observe a person falling overboard. For this reason, a life ring or other safety equipment designed to keep a person afloat should be within easy reach. Ideally, the winch operator should have an unrestricted view of the fishing gear and other equipment being deployed or hauled. If a clear view of the winching operation is not possible, then a second person should be in attendance to provide instruction and guidance. The winch operator should avoid placing excessive loads on trawl wire or hauling ropes, as they may suddenly part and their recoil may injure crew. Sudden loads or a jerking action on the trawl wire or hauling rope should also be avoided, to prevent excessive strain and damage to blocks and tackle, hydraulic hose failure, or injury to crew from falling loads. Whilst deploying the cod-ends, the operator must be on the lookout for the lazy line fouling and back wrapping on the lazy line winch, because continued winch operation will jerk the line to a sudden stop and then commence hauling the line. The deck crew must keep clear of all loads, including boards, nets, and equipment, and they must never walk under a load or a block under load. They must keep a close eye on the lazy line as cod-ends are deployed, in case the line back wraps around the winch, because sudden tension in the line could knock an individual overboard. Loose clothing must not be worn around winches, warps or any moving equipment, and long hair should be tied back or held in place in a hairnet and stand clear of the winch drum. A winch guard should be in place to prevent the operator or other person falling into the winch. When a winch operator does not have a clear view of the lifting of winching operation, a second person will be required to provide instruction and guidance using clear and precise hand signals. There is a universal, standard code for hand signals, and these should be used by the second person. It is essential that the second person and the winch operator take time to learn the code and have a clear understanding of each hand signal. Trawl wire and lifting ropes must be inspected every few days for broken strands, nicks, cuts, and signs of excessive wear and abrasion. Splices in both wires and ropes are a weak link and potential source of failure, so frequent inspection is necessary. All blocks should be the correct size, otherwise damage to the block, wire or rope may occur. Blocks must be inspected every few days for damage and wear, and lubricated. The holding shackle should also be inspected. Blocks should also be fitted with safety chains in case the holding shackle fails. When hauling ropes are used, it is important that hands are kept well clear of blocks to avoid injury. Every few days the hydraulic hoses should be inspected for signs of fatigue or oil loss. Hydraulic oil on the deck is a slipping hazard and may result in serious injury. It is important to stand well clear of winches while deploying and hauling trawl wires. Even though a safety guard should be in place, there is still the risk that loose clothing can be caught dragging you into the winch or guard. On some boats, the trawl wire is hauled over the top of the winch drum rather than below, which may reduce the likelihood you or anyone else is dragged into the winch whilst hauling. Many newer trawlers have a hydraulic system for guiding wires evenly onto the winch. However, on some older trawlers this remains a manual job, requiring the use of a large rod or pole and the strength of a crew member to lever the wire evenly on the winch. This can be a dangerous operation and there may be a risk of falling into the winch. Extreme care is required in this circumstance, to maintain awareness, concentration, and balance. Capstans and windlasses make light work of heavy lifting. A capstan typically rotates around a vertical axis and a windlass around a horizontal axis, although these terms are often used interchangeably. In any case, there are several safety steps that must be taken by the person using a capstan or windlass to haul a load. The hauling rope must be wound around the capstan at least 3 times, and more if the load is heavy. This gives the person control over the hauling maneuver, and reduces the risk of hands being pulled toward the capstan and crushed, particularly if there is a sudden jerk on the rope and the operator does not let go in time. There is also a risk of injury to others if control of the rope is lost and the load suddenly falls. When using a capstan, a hauling rope must be wound over the top of the drum. In this way, the end of the rope being hauled by the person also comes from the top of the drum, which reduces the risk of a person being dragged into the capstan should they fall against the rope. As hauling of the rope commences, the person should coil or flake the rope on the deck in a clockwise direction. This helps keeps the strands of the rope tight, prevents kinking, and ensure the rope can be paid out with little risk of entanglement and fouling. The person must also stand clear of the rope to avoid becoming entangled and potentially dragged into the capstan. Care must also be taken to ensure that the rope does not jam and comes cleanly away from the drum, particularly due to fouling by splices and stray strands of rope. When hauling is completed, the rope must be tied around a cleat several times using a figure 8 motion, and a half hitch can be used to lock off the rope. Finally, when joining 2 ropes using sister clips, it is essential that the sister clips are joined correctly to minimize the risk of the clips separating. They should also be wound around the winch drum at least 2 times before load comes on the rope, as this also minimizes the risk of the clips pulling open and separating from each other. Excellent! You have now completed the winch and hauling gear safety module. Now we will review the material that we covered.